The stars had never seemed so quiet. Ambassador Vorath Kell stood on the command deck of his mighty warship, the Eternal Compliance, and watched the blue planet grow larger on the view screen. Earth, a small world circling a small yellow sun at the edge of an unimportant spiral arm. Nothing special about it at all. Behind Vorath, the enforcement fleet of the Hegemony of Veth spread across space like a metal cloud. 300 warships. Enough firepower to crack a planet in half. Enough soldiers to occupy a dozen worlds. This was the might of an empire that controlled over 2,000 star systems. An empire that had never lost a single integration campaign in 800 years. Vorath clicked his mandibles together in satisfaction. His insectoid body stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in black armor that gleamed under the bridge lights. He had done this work for 2 centuries. He had watched species weep and beg. He had seen proud civilizations crumble at the sight of hegemony guns. This would be no different. Ambassador, said Admiral Thesic, approaching with a data tablet. The admiral was shorter than Vorath, with 4 arms instead of 2, but he carried himself with the confidence of a soldier who had burned worlds. Our scans are complete, and the humans are classified as Tier 7, the lowest classification possible for a space-capable species. Thesic's compound eyes flickered with amusement. They have no faster-than-light travel. Their weapons are primitive chemical propellants and basic nuclear devices. They have a few hundred satellites and some fragile stations orbiting their world. Their moon is dead. Their nearest colony ships are generation vessels that will take centuries to reach other stars. Vorath made a sound like grinding stones. It was his species' way of laughing. Primitive indeed. And their social structure? Fractured. They divide themselves into nearly 200 separate political units. They fight among themselves constantly over resources, ideology, and territory. Our analysts believe they will surrender quickly once they understand the alternative. Good. Vorath turned back to the view screen. Open a channel. Let us introduce ourselves. The communications officer worked at her console. A moment later, she nodded. Channel open, Ambassador. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Vorath straightened his posture. He had given this speech many times. The words were old, but they still carried power. People of Earth, he began. His voice translated into every human language simultaneously. I am Ambassador Vorath Kell, of the Hegemony of Veth. We come to you today, not as enemies, but as protectors. The galaxy is vast and filled with dangers beyond your understanding. Predator species, cosmic disasters, ancient machines that consume worlds. Your kind is young and weak. You cannot survive alone. He paused for effect. On Earth, billions of humans would be watching. They would see his fleet blocking out the stars. They would feel small. They always did. The hegemony offers you protection, Vorath continued. In exchange, you will provide tribute. 60% of your planetary resources each year. Your strongest citizens will serve in our labor corps. Your scientists will work under hegemony supervision. This is not negotiable. This is the price of survival. Another pause. Now came the threat. The part that broke them. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what happens to those who stand against the hegemony. Your moon will be destroyed. Your cities will burn. Your species will be reduced to animals living in the ashes of your civilization. You have 1 hour to respond. Vorath ended the transmission. He folded his arms behind his back and waited. Around him, the bridge crew went about their duties. Someone began preparing the targeting systems. Someone else started calculating the optimal positions for troop carriers. 30 minutes passed. Ambassador, the communications officer said. We are receiving a response from Earth. Put it on screen. The view screen flickered. A human woman appeared. She was small by Vorath's standards, barely 5.5 feet tall. Her skin was brown, her hair was gray, and her eyes were dark. She wore formal clothing that Vorath's database identified as typical for human leaders. I am Secretary General Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Council, the woman said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. We have received your offer, Ambassador Kell. Vorath inclined his head. And your answer? The woman smiled. It was a strange expression. Not fear, not submission. Something else entirely. And then she laughed. The sound caught Vorath off guard. It was a genuine laugh, full of warmth and amusement, as if he had told a particularly good joke. Around him, His bridge crew shifted uncomfortably. This was not how primitives were supposed to react. Protection, Vasquez said, still chuckling. You're offering us protection. That's adorable, Ambassador. Truly. Voreth's mandibles clicked in irritation. You find this amusing? Perhaps you do not understand your situation. My fleet carries enough weapons to reduce your entire civilization to dust. Oh, I understand perfectly, Vasquez replied. Her smile remained, but something cold crept into her eyes. The question is, do you understand yours? What do you mean? I mean, Ambassador, did your intelligence division do any research on humanity before you came here? Did you study our history, our culture? Did you look at what we've done to ourselves over the past 10,000 years? Voreth exchanged a glance with Admiral Thesic. The Admiral shrugged his foreshoulders. We know everything we need to know, Voreth said. You are a primitive species with no significant military capability. Your internal conflicts prove you are incapable of unified resistance. You will submit, or you will burn. Vasquez leaned forward. The smile was gone now. In its place was an expression that made something ancient and instinctive stir in Voreth's brain. A warning, a sense of danger that his species had carried since they were small creatures hiding from predators in the swamps of their homeworld. Let me tell you something about humanity, Ambassador. We have spent our entire existence fighting. We have fought ice ages, plagues, famines, and floods. We have fought wild animals, natural disasters, and each other. We have invented more ways to kill than any species in this galaxy has ever imagined. We have burned cities, split atoms, and poisoned our own air because we could not stop making new weapons. She stood up, and despite her small size, she seemed to fill the entire screen. You think we are weak because we are divided? Our divisions are the reason we are strong. Competition drives us. Conflict sharpens us. Every generation, we get better at war. And when an outside threat appears, she spread her hands. We unite. Instantly. Completely. You are not the first enemy humanity has faced, Ambassador. You are simply the latest. Voreth felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Uncertainty. You are bluffing, he said. Your technology is inferior. Your fleet is non-existent. You cannot fight us. Can't we? Vasquez tilted her head. Tell me, Ambassador, have you tried firing your weapons recently? Have you checked your navigation systems? Your life support? A cold sensation spread through Voreth's body. He turned to Admiral Thesic. Report. What is the status of our systems? The Admiral was already at a console, his four hands moving frantically. His compound eyes went wide. When he looked up, his voice was barely a whisper. Everything is offline. Weapons, engines, shields, everything. Voreth turned back to the screen. Secretary General Vasquez was smiling again. Welcome to the Sol system, Ambassador. We've been expecting you. The transmission ended. And for the first time in 200 years, Ambassador Voreth Kell felt something very close to fear. The bridge of the eternal compliance had become a place of chaos. Officers ran between stations. Warning lights flashed in patterns that meant nothing because the systems controlling them had gone mad. Admiral Thesic shouted orders that no one could follow because there was nothing left to control. Voreth stood in the center of it all, perfectly still. His mind worked to understand what was happening, but the answers would not come. This was impossible. The Hegemony's technology was 800 years ahead of humanity. Their encryption was unbreakable. Their systems were protected by the finest military engineers in 2,000 star systems, and yet everything was dead. Admiral, Voreth said, his voice cutting through the noise. Give me a full report. Thesic approached, his forearms hanging limp at his sides. The confidence was gone from his face. He looked like a soldier who had just watched his entire army disappear. Every ship in the fleet is reporting the same problem, Thesic said. All major systems are non-functional. Weapons will not charge. Engines will not fire. Navigation is locked. Even life support is operating at minimum levels, just enough to keep us alive. A virus? Unknown. Our security systems show no intrusion, no foreign code, nothing. It is as if our own computers simply decided to stop working. Voreth clicked his mandibles. That is not possible. Someone is doing this. Find them. Before Thesic could respond, the bridge lights flickered. Every screen on the command deck went dark for a moment. Then, one by one, they lit up again. But instead of showing system reports or tactical displays, they all showed the same image. A human male, young, perhaps 30 years old by their species count. He had messy brown hair, tired eyes, and a friendly smile. He was sitting in what appeared to be a small room filled with computing equipment. In one hand, he held a bag of some kind of food. He waved at the camera with the other. "Hey there," the human said. His voice was relaxed, casual, as if he were greeting an old friend. "How's everyone doing? Good? Not good? Yeah, I figured. Sorry about the whole systems shutdown thing. Nothing personal." Vorath stepped toward the main screen. "Who are you? How are you doing this?" "Name's Marcus Chen," the human replied. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small orange triangle. He bit into it with a loud crunch. "I'm what you'd call a hacker, though that word doesn't really cover it anymore. We kind of moved past traditional hacking about 40 years ago." 40 years ago? Yeah. That's when we figured out quantum lattice computing. Changed everything. Suddenly we could process information at speeds that, well, your species hasn't even imagined yet. Marcus shrugged. "No offense. You'll get there eventually." "Probably." Admiral Thesic pushed forward. "This is impossible. Our systems are protected by military-grade encryption, the finest in the hegemony." Marcus laughed. It was a kind laugh, not mocking, more like a teacher amused by a student's simple mistake. "Military-grade encryption. Right. Let me explain something. Your encryption is based on mathematical complexity, big numbers, lots of calculations. The idea is that it would take millions of years to crack, and for your computers, that's true." He took another bite of his food. "For our computers, it took about 6 seconds, per ship. Your entire fleet was cracked and compromised before you passed Jupiter." Vorath felt the cold sensation spreading again. "Jupiter? That is days from here." "Yep. We've had control of your systems for a while now. We let you keep flying because, honestly, we wanted to see what you would say. That whole protection speech was pretty good, by the way. Very dramatic." "Did you write it yourself?" Vorath ignored the question. "If you have controlled our ships for days, why did you wait until now to reveal yourself?" "Because we wanted to give you a chance to do the right thing." For the first time, Marcus's smile faded. His eyes grew serious. "We heard your transmissions when you entered the solar system. We know what the hegemony does to species that refuse to submit. We know about the slave worlds, the resource extraction, the cultural erasure. We know everything. How could you possibly know that?" "Because we've been listening to your communications for 60 years, Ambassador. Ever since we picked up our first hegemony signal, we decoded your language. We learned your history. We studied your technology." Marcus leaned forward. "And we prepared." The image on the screen changed. Now it showed space, stars, and something else. Something massive, hidden in the shadow of a gas giant. Ships, thousands of them, dark metal hulls that reflected no light, weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. "Meet the Dark Fleet," Marcus said. 20 years of construction, completely hidden from your sensors. We reverse-engineered your weapons from drones you sent into our system decades ago. Then we improved them. Your thermal exhaust problem? Fixed. Your shield frequency vulnerability? Patched. Your targeting lag at long range? Eliminated." Vorath stared at the fleet on the screen. It was bigger than his own. Much bigger. "This cannot be real," he whispered. "It's very real, Ambassador. And that's not even the best part." Marcus's image returned to the screen. He was smiling again, but there was no warmth in it now. "You want to know the best part? Right now, your nearest backup fleet is entering the Proxima Centauri system. They think they're going to find a few primitive colony ships. Slow targets. Easy conquest. Proxima Centauri? Yeah. We've had colonies there for about 60 years. Built them using faster-than-light technology that we developed in secret. Didn't tell anyone because, well..." Marcus shrugged. "We wanted to see who would come knocking first. And now, your backup fleet is about to discover that Proxima isn't a soft target. It's a fortress. Automated defense platforms, orbital weapons, mining ships converted into warships. Everything we needed to welcome guests like you." Admiral Thesic grabbed Vorath's arm. His grip was desperate. "Ambassador, we must send a warning. We must..." "You can't," Marcus interrupted. Your communications are locked down too. No signals in or out. Your fleet is alone, Ambassador. Cut off from the hegemony, surrounded by humans, and completely at our mercy. Vorath straightened his posture. He forced himself to project calm even though his hearts were beating fast. What do you want? Right now? I want you to shut up and listen. Marcus's voice was hard now. Your ambassador friend is about to get an invitation to visit Earth. She's going to show him some things, important things, things that will help him understand exactly how badly the hegemony miscalculated when they decided to threaten humanity. And, if he refuses, he won't. Because if he refuses, his crew dies. Simple as that. Life support on your ships is running on emergency power. We control that power. We can turn it off whenever we want. Marcus's eyes locked onto Vorath, through the screen. We don't want to kill anyone, Ambassador. Humans have done enough killing over the centuries. We're tired of it. But we will do whatever is necessary to protect our species. Whatever is necessary. Do you understand? Vorath understood. For the first time, he truly understood. The hegemony had not found a primitive species. They had found something far more dangerous. They had found a species that had spent its entire existence preparing for war, a species that had mastered the art of combat against the only enemy that ever truly challenged them, themselves. And now that enemy was united, focused, ready. I understand, Vorath said quietly. Marcus nodded. His smile returned, softer now. Good. Then let's begin. The human shuttle was small. Vorath had to bend his tall frame to fit through the doorway, and his armored shoulders scraped against the walls as he moved to his seat. 2 human soldiers sat across from him. They wore black uniforms and carried weapons that Vorath's eyes could not identify. They watched him with the calm focus of predators. The shuttle dropped through Earth's atmosphere. Through the small window, Vorath watched clouds rush past. Then the clouds parted, and he saw the surface of the human homeworld for the first time. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, brown mountains capped with white snow, cities that glittered in the sunlight like scattered jewels. From up here, it looked peaceful, innocent, nothing like the reality that Vorath was beginning to understand. The shuttle landed in a massive underground facility. The doors opened, and Secretary General Vasquez was waiting for him. She wore the same formal clothing as before, but now she also wore a small smile that held no warmth. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador, she said. I hope your journey was comfortable. Where are we? Vorath asked. Underneath the Swiss Alps. This is one of our primary military command centers. We call it the bunker. It's been here for about 80 years, built to survive nuclear war. When we learned about the hegemony, we expanded it considerably. She turned and began walking. Vorath followed. The human soldiers fell in behind him, their footsteps silent on the metal floor. The corridor was wide and brightly lit. Humans moved through it in all directions. Some in military uniforms, others in civilian clothing. They carried tablets and papers. They talked into small devices attached to their ears. They glanced at Vorath with curiosity but no fear. That troubled him more than anything else. When did you know? Vorath asked. When did you first learn about the hegemony? 63 years ago, Vasquez replied without turning around. One of our deep space listening stations picked up an unusual signal. It took us 2 years to decode it. When we did, we learned about your empire, your conquests, your methods, and you told no one? We told everyone who needed to know, which, eventually, meant everyone. Vasquez stopped at a large door. It slid open, revealing an enormous room filled with screens and consoles. Hundreds of humans worked at stations, monitoring data streams that Vorath could not begin to understand. This is our global coordination center, Vasquez explained. From here, we manage all of humanity's hidden infrastructure. The Dark Fleet, the colonial networks, the research facilities, the defense platforms, everything. Vorath looked around the room. His analytical mind began processing what he saw. The technology here was advanced. Far more advanced than anything his intelligence reports had suggested. The screens showed star charts, ship movements, resource allocations. This was not the work of a primitive species. This was the work of an empire. How? He asked. How did you develop all of this without us noticing? Vasquez smiled. Because we wanted you to see weakness. Every public transmission, every visible satellite, Every news broadcast from Earth was designed to make us look divided and primitive. We let you see what you expected to see. Meanwhile, in secret, we built something else entirely. She led him to another door. This one opened into a vast hangar bay. Vorath stepped through and stopped, unable to move further. Ships, hundreds of them. They hung in maintenance cradles, their dark hulls gleaming under industrial lights. Workers moved around them like ants, welding, adjusting, improving. These were warships, real warships, designed for combat on a scale that Vorath had never seen from a species so young. Project Prometheus, Vasquez said. 30 years of unified human effort. Every nation contributed. Every scientist, every engineer, every factory worker who could be trusted with the secret. We took your technology as our baseline, and then we made it better. She walked toward one of the ships. It was smaller than a Hegemony cruiser but more compact, more aggressive in its design. This is a Valkyrie-class attack corvette. It carries weapons that can punch through Hegemony shields in 3 shots instead of 12. Its engines are twice as efficient as yours, and its crew is 1/3 the size because we automated everything that could be automated. Vorath approached the ship. He reached out and touched its hull. The metal was cold and smooth. It hummed with contained power. We captured several of your scout drones over the years, Vasquez continued. We studied them, learned from them, and then we improved upon what we learned. Your thermal exhaust systems leak energy in patterns that make you visible on long-range sensors. We fixed that. Your shield generators have a frequency gap that appears every 30 seconds. We eliminated it. Your targeting computers struggle at distances beyond 50,000 kilometers. Ours work perfectly at 200,000. Vorath pulled his hand back from the hull. You have been preparing for war. We have been preparing for survival, Vasquez corrected. There is a difference. We did not want this fight. We hoped that whoever found us first would be peaceful, curious, interested in friendship rather than conquest. But we prepared for the alternative, because that is what humans do. We hope for the best and prepare for the worst. She led him out of the hangar and down another corridor. This one ended at a window that looked out over an underground city. Vorath pressed his face against the glass. Below him, thousands of humans lived and worked in a cavern that stretched for kilometers. Buildings rose from the cavern floor. Parks and gardens provided green spaces between structures. Children played in open areas while adults moved through streets filled with vehicles and pedestrians. This is Haven, Vasquez said. One of 12 underground cities we have built around the world. If the surface becomes uninhabitable, humanity can survive down here for generations. We have farms, factories, hospitals, schools, everything we need to keep our species alive. Vorath watched a group of children kicking a ball across a field. They were laughing. They did not know that an alien fleet hung in orbit above them. They did not know that their world had been threatened with destruction. They were simply playing, living their lives, trusting that the adults would protect them. You built all of this because of us, Vorath said quietly. We built all of this because of everyone, Vasquez replied. We knew the galaxy was not empty. We knew that eventually someone would come. Someone would want what we have, or fear what we might become, or simply decide that we were in the way. So we prepared. Quietly, secretly, with absolute determination. She turned to face him directly. Her eyes were hard, but there was something else in them too. Something that Vorath did not expect. Sadness. We did not want to be warriors, Ambassador. Humans dream of exploration, of discovery, of meeting new friends among the stars. But the universe gave us enemies instead, so we became what we needed to become. We became dangerous. Vorath looked back at the underground city, at the children playing, at the families walking together, at the entire hidden world that humanity had built while pretending to be weak. What happens now? He asked. Vasquez turned back toward the corridor. Now you learn the rest. Now you see exactly how far humanity is willing to go to protect itself. And then, Ambassador, you will carry a message back to the Hegemony, a message that will change everything. Vorath followed her, his mind struggling to process everything he had seen. He had come to Earth expecting to intimidate a primitive species into submission. Instead, he had discovered a civilization that had been preparing for his arrival for decades, a civilization that was no longer afraid, a civilization that was ready to fight back. The Hegemony High Council met in the Great Hall of their capital world. 12 leaders representing 12 species sat around a table made from the bones of a conquered civilization. This was tradition. This was power. This was the way things had always been. Grand Overseer Malachar presided over the meeting. He was ancient even by the standards of his long-lived species, his scaled body bent with age, his eyes clouded but still sharp. He had led the hegemony for 300 years. He had never lost. "Report," he commanded. The intelligence director, a thin creature with 6 eyes and trembling hands, stood to address the council. "Grand Overseer, we have received Ambassador Vorath's transmission from the Sol system. The situation is unprecedented." "Explain." "The humans have disabled our entire enforcement fleet. 300 ships are now without power, held hostage in orbit around Earth. Our backup fleet at Proxima Centauri was destroyed upon arrival. Only 2 ships escaped to bring us news." The council chamber erupted in noise. Species that had been enemies before the hegemony united them, shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others called for caution. One representative simply sat in silence, his face pale with fear. Malachar raised one withered hand. The room went quiet. "How is this possible?" he asked. "The humans are classified, Tier 7. They have no significant technology. They are divided, weak. Our classification was incorrect, Grand Overseer. The humans have been deceiving us for decades. They possess faster-than-light travel. They have constructed a massive hidden fleet. They have reverse-engineered our own technology and improved upon it. Our analysts believe they are now at least Tier 3, possibly Tier 2. Tier 2. That was the classification for species that could threaten the hegemony directly. There were only 5 Tier 2 civilizations in the entire galaxy, and all of them were careful to avoid conflict with the hegemony. "Send another fleet," demanded one of the council members. "Send 10 fleets. Crush these humans before they become a greater threat." "We cannot," the intelligence director replied. "The humans have infiltrated us." Silence. Absolute silence. "Infiltrated?" Malachar leaned forward. "Explain." "Now, approximately 40 years ago, the humans began sending generation ships into deep space. We detected these ships and dismissed them as primitive colonization attempts. We were wrong. These ships carried human operatives, sleeper agents. They traveled to worlds throughout hegemony space and integrated themselves into local populations. Impossible. Humans look nothing like any species in the hegemony. They did not pretend to be members of other species. They presented themselves as refugees, merchants, scholars. They learned local languages. They made friends. They built trust. And then they began sending messages, not to Earth, but to the subjugated species on the worlds where they lived. The intelligence director brought up a holographic display. It showed a map of hegemony space. Red dots appeared across the map, spreading like a disease. In the past 3 days, we have recorded uprisings on 47 worlds. Slave species that have not resisted in centuries are suddenly refusing to work. Labor camps are being abandoned. Mining operations have stopped. On Kethari Prime, the workers have seized control of 3 orbital platforms and are refusing to return them. Malachar stared at the map. His clawed hands gripped the armrests of his throne. What are the humans telling them? We have intercepted some of their transmissions. The message is simple. They tell the slaves that they are not alone, that resistance is possible, that humanity stands with them. The intelligence director paused. They call it the Liberation Protocol. The council chamber exploded again. This time, the noise was different. This was not anger. This was fear. Malachar raised his hand once more. "Contact the humans. Tell them we are willing to negotiate. Grand Overseer. Negotiations would be seen as weakness. We are weak." Malachar slammed his hand against the table. The ancient bone cracked beneath his palm. "Can you not see what has happened? In less than a week, these humans have crippled our military, destroyed our backup fleet, and ignited rebellions across our territory. They are not primitives. They are predators, and we walked directly into their trap." The council fell silent. "Contact them," Malachar repeated. Now, the transmission was established within hours. Secretary General Vasquez appeared on the main screen of the council chamber. She looked small compared to the massive aliens around the table, but her presence filled the room. "Grand Overseer Malachar," she said, "thank you for agreeing to speak with us. You have left me little choice, Secretary General. Your actions have caused considerable disruption to our operations. Your operations included threatening to destroy my planet and enslave my species. I think some disruption was appropriate. Malakar's scales rippled with irritation. What do you want? Vasquez folded her hands in front of her. I want you to listen. Carefully. Because I am only going to say this once. She stood and began pacing, her image moving across the screen. For 800 years, the hegemony has operated on a simple principle. The strong take from the weak. Those with power use it to dominate those without. Species are judged by their ability to fight, and those who cannot fight are enslaved. She stopped and faced the camera directly. Humanity rejects this principle. Completely and absolutely. We believe that every intelligent species has the right to determine its own future. We believe that strength should be used to protect, not to oppress. And we believe that the galaxy can be something better than what you have made it. Malakar's clouded eyes narrowed. Pretty words, but you are one species against an empire of thousands. You cannot force us to change, can't we? Vasquez smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Let me tell you what happens next if you refuse our terms. First, we complete our current operations. Your fleet at Sol is captured. Your forces at Proxima are already destroyed. Your intelligence networks are compromised, and we are feeding you false information even as we speak. She held up a finger. Second, we expand the Liberation Protocol. Right now, 47 worlds are in rebellion. Within a month, that number will be 400. We have operatives on every major hegemony world. We have been building networks for 40 years. We know your weak points. We know where your food comes from, where your weapons are manufactured, where your leaders sleep at night. A second finger. Third, we begin direct military action. Our dark fleet is larger than you realize. We have allies you do not know about. Species that have been waiting for someone to challenge the hegemony, someone to show that resistance is possible. They will join us. They are already joining us. A third finger. And fourth, we never stop. Never. Humans do not surrender. Humans do not give up. We have survived ice ages. We have survived plagues. We have survived nuclear weapons and our own worst impulses. We will survive you. She lowered her hand. Those are your options if you refuse. Now let me tell you our terms if you accept. She pulled out a document and held it up. First, you will release all enslaved species. Immediately. Every slave world will be given independence and the resources necessary to rebuild. Second, you will dissolve all tribute systems. No more taking from the weak to feed the strong. Every species keeps what it produces. Third, you will submit to a new galactic compact. A council where every species has an equal voice, where disputes are resolved through negotiation, not force, where the goal is cooperation, not domination. She set the document down. These terms are not negotiable. You have 1 week to respond. If you accept, we can build something new together. If you refuse, she paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was ice. Then humanity will do what humanity does best. We will fight. And we will win. Not because we are stronger than you. Not because we are smarter than you. But because we have spent 10,000 years learning that the only thing worth fighting for is freedom. Yours. Ours. Everyone's. The transmission ended. Grand Overseer Malakar sat in silence for a long time. The council watched him, waiting. Finally, he spoke. Prepare for war. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was already too late. The humans had planned for this. They had planned for everything, and the galaxy would never be the same. The war lasted 11 months. It was not the war that Grand Overseer Malakar had expected. He had prepared for a traditional conflict. Fleets meeting fleets, planets being bombed, armies clashing on the surface of contested worlds. That was how the hegemony fought. That was how they had always won. But the humans did not fight like that. They fought like shadows, like ghosts, like the predators they had always been, hiding in the darkness and striking where their enemy was weakest. The first blow came 3 days after negotiations failed. The hegemony's central communications hub, a massive space station that coordinated all military operations, simply went offline. No warning, no attack. It just stopped working. Later, investigators would discover that human operatives had infiltrated the station's maintenance crews years earlier. They had planted devices that waited silently until the signal was given. The second blow came a week later. The Hegemony's primary weapons manufacturing planet suffered a cascade of industrial accidents. Factories exploded, refineries caught fire, power grids failed. The official investigation blamed equipment failure, but everyone knew the truth. Human saboteurs had been at work for decades, slowly and patiently placing the tools of destruction exactly where they would cause the most damage. The third blow was the Dark Fleet. It appeared simultaneously in 18 star systems. No warning. No advanced scouts. One moment the space around Hegemony worlds was empty, and the next moment it was filled with human warships. Black hulls that absorbed light, weapons that glowed with barely contained energy, crews that fought with the desperate determination of a species that had nothing left to lose. The battles were short and brutal. Human ships were faster, more maneuverable, and more heavily armed than Hegemony analysts had predicted. They moved in perfect coordination, communicating through channels that the Hegemony could not detect or jam. They targeted engines first, then weapons, then life support. They disabled rather than destroyed. They captured rather than killed, and they were not alone. The uprisings that had started on 47 worlds spread to hundreds more. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly remembered what it meant to be free. They seized weapons. They captured ships. They opened their planet's defenses to human forces and closed them against Hegemony reinforcements. The Cathari, a species of insectoid workers who had served as the backbone of Hegemony industry for 600 years, stopped working entirely. Every factory they controlled went silent. Every mine they operated was abandoned. Without Cathari labor, the Hegemony's war machine ground to a halt. The Vrelian, a species of aquatic engineers responsible for maintaining Hegemony ships, began making mistakes. Critical mistakes. Engines failed at crucial moments. Shields collapsed under minimal stress. Weapons misfired or refused to fire at all. The Hegemony discovered too late that the Vrelian had been in contact with human operatives for years, preparing for exactly this moment. Grand Overseer Malachar watched his empire crumble from his throne room. Reports came in every hour, and each one was worse than the last. Planets falling, fleets destroyed, allies defecting. The great machine of Hegemony control was breaking apart, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The humans were not trying to conquer. They were trying to liberate. Every world they freed was given the choice to join the new galactic compact or remain independent. Most chose to join, not because they feared humanity, but because they believed in what humanity was offering. A galaxy based on cooperation instead of domination. A future where every species had a voice. On the 287th day of the war, Grand Overseer Malachar received a personal message from Secretary General Vasquez. "It's over," she said. Her face was tired but calm. "Your military capability has been reduced by 80%. Your industrial base has collapsed. Your subject species are in open rebellion. You can continue fighting, but you will lose. You have already lost." Malachar stared at the screen. 300 years of rule, 800 years of Hegemony history, all of it ending because a single species refused to bow. "What do you want?" he asked. "The same thing I wanted at the beginning. Freedom. For everyone. Accept the Galactic Compact. Release your remaining slaves. Dissolve your empire. And we can begin building something new." "And if I refuse?" Vasquez leaned forward. "Then we keep fighting, as long as it takes, until the last Hegemony ship is captured and the last enslaved species is free. We did not start this war, Grand Overseer, but we will finish it, one way or another." Malachar was silent for a long time. His scaled hands rested on the arms of his throne. His clouded eyes stared at nothing. Finally, he spoke. "I will address the council." The surrender ceremony was held on a new space station called Unity. It orbited a neutral world that had been chosen specifically because no species had ever controlled it. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the main hall. Humans stood beside Cathari. Vrelian floated in water tanks next to desert-dwelling reptilians. Creatures that had never met now shared space, united by a common purpose. Ambassador Vorath was there. He had been treated well during his captivity, given food and shelter and access to communication with his family. Now he stood at the front of the hall, watching as Grand Overseer Malachar approached the podium. The old ruler looked even more ancient than before. The war had aged him. The defeat had broken something inside him. He moved slowly, each step an effort, On behalf of the hegemony of Veth, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, I accept the terms of the Galactic Compact. We release all enslaved species. We dissolve our tribute systems. We submit to the authority of the new council. He paused. His eyes found Secretary General Vasquez in the crowd. We surrender. The hall was silent. No cheering. No celebration. This was not a victory to celebrate. Too many had died. Too much had been lost. This was simply the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. After the ceremony, Vorath found Vasquez on an observation deck. She was alone, staring out at the stars. He approached quietly and stood beside her. You are wondering how this happened, she said without turning. How your analysts got it so wrong. Vorath clicked his mandibles in agreement. Your species was classified as primitive, fractured, self-destructive. We believed you would collapse without external pressure. We never imagined you would unite. Vasquez laughed softly. We are all those things. Primitive in many ways, fractured in many ways, self-destructive in many ways. But here is what your analysts never understood. She turned to face him. Her eyes were tired but peaceful. Humanity's greatest strength is not our technology. It is not our weapons. It is not our numbers or our resources or our strategic planning. Our greatest strength is that we have faced extinction 100 times and survived every single one. Ice ages, plagues, famines, wars, our own stupidity. Every generation, something tries to destroy us. And every generation, we find a way to keep going. She looked back at the stars. We adapt, we endure, we refuse to die. And when something threatens us from outside, we stop fighting each other and start fighting together. It is messy, it is painful, it takes too long and costs too much. But in the end, we always find our way. Vorath considered her words. You could have destroyed us. You had the power. You had the justification. Many species would have chosen revenge. Yes, Vasquez agreed. And many humans wanted exactly that. But we did not fight this war for revenge. We fought it for freedom. For the Cathari workers who had never known anything but slavery. For the Vrelian engineers who dreamed of building things for themselves instead of their masters. For every species in the galaxy that deserved the chance to determine its own future. She extended her hand to Vorath. The human gesture of peace. The old galaxy is over. The hegemony is gone. Now we build something new. Together. All of us. Equal partners in a universe that has room for everyone. Vorath looked at her hand. He thought of his fleet. Captured but intact. He thought of his crew. Alive and safe. He thought of the empire he had served. Now dissolved into something he did not yet understand. Slowly. Carefully. He reached out and took her hand. You asked if we knew who we were threatening, Vasquez said. Now you know. We are humanity. We have been preparing for you since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. And we decided a long time ago that whatever we found, we would not bow. Not to fear. Not to tyrants. Not to anyone. She smiled. A real smile. Warm and genuine. Welcome to the new galaxy, Ambassador. Try not to make the same mistake twice. Vorath looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new possibilities were waiting. New challenges, new chances to build something better. For the first time in 200 years, he felt something very close to hope.